You just need to work hard on it, and unfortunately, there is no shortcut. You have to work on it. There is no easy way. You have to go the hard way. But once you do, the rewards will come. Hello everyone and welcome once again to the channel. My name is Mars Molina. I am a professor of yoga and spirituality, and I use these and other tools such as Jyotish, which is Vedic astrology, to support my own life and support the lives of others. It is all with the intention of achieving health, prosperity, happiness in life, and how to understand ourselves at a deeper level, how to understand the world at a greater, more real level, and of course, we can navigate through life with more harmony. And in today's video, I want to talk about how we can start understanding our mind and the way our mind behaves deeper and better to not just be less challenged by the activity of the mind, but also how to turn that activity of the mind from something that is maybe adverse or challenging or an obstacle into something that can support our lives. Just shifting that entire activity of the mind to our service, which is true alchemy and the true purpose of yoga, the true purpose of meditation, the true purpose of these practices that we have here. So let me ask you, have you ever felt that no matter how much progress you make in life, there are certain themes that come back to you and they hold you or slow things down or restrain you, limit you in some kind of way, whether it's an external thing that happens where you're being held in place and cannot move forward, maybe through the law or a government mandate or just the economical and social circumstances of your life, or perhaps it's more of an internal experience where you feel that you just don't have what it takes, you don't have the energy, the discipline, the power, or maybe you're being held down by fear and you feel like you can't just make progress. Now, if you look very keenly into it, you might recognize that there are certain patterns through which these things are happening. If we look at the perspective of Vedic astrology, we can look at a person's chart. And in that person's chart, we can see how there are certain themes that can repeatedly happen in this person's life. And of course, what can we do about it so that they can be pacified and the life can move forward without that internal experience of fear or without all these stagnations that may happen completely outside of our control or seemingly outside of our control. So that's the energy I want to talk about today. And in terms of this spiritual perspective that I share, of course, this energy of delay, limitation, this weird rhythm that we find ourselves in, that fear and that trend of creating certain limiting patterns in our lives, in our mind, in our experience. That is called Saturn. When we talk about Vedic astrology, I know it can seem a little bit strange to think about this planet, that planet, but I always recommend to take things into an open mind perspective and just put it into a bottle together and say, okay, Saturn equals these things that Mars is talking about. It is related to discipline, to fear, obstruction, limitation, delay, discipline, structure. So let's say that all those things together have a certain trend, a certain pattern, and to put them all in the same bottle, we call that Saturn. And that is what I want to talk about today. Now, in the past, I've spoken about Saturn and how we can overcome the challenges that Saturn graciously offers us by overcoming fear and by understanding the rules that we have set for ourselves in our minds. In particular, I've spoken a lot about this, and I'll speak a little bit more this time around about the rules that we start living life by without us realizing. And these are the ones that create subconscious or unconscious patterns in our lives that are really limiting our experience. And this is what we want to bring into the light today. So this time, to go a little bit deeper, remember I've mentioned that Saturn rules limitations, but we should not boil down Saturn to only say, okay, Saturn rules limitations, therefore, Saturn's role in our lives is to limit us. That's not what I mean. It wouldn't be fair, it wouldn't be true, it would be against the point of this whole video to say that Saturn's role in our lives is to create limitations. No, no planet wants to limit you. All planets are in our service, and all planets have a particular role to play for liberation. But as ironic as it may seem, in order for us to achieve that liberation, we need to understand what the limitations are. So we need that experience of limitation so it can guide us to liberation. Once again, Saturn's role in our lives is not for restriction, is rather to understand what is really going on with the restrictions that we have created for ourselves. Maybe not consciously. Maybe you don't know that you have created these limitations for yourself, but really you did. Really you did, because in the grand scope of things, it is all within a certain awareness. And when we become more conscious, more aware, we start picking up more and more and more that responsibility of our current condition, and therefore that awareness of saying, well, this is something that I've chosen for myself to limit my life by, to rule my life by. And the more conscious I can become of it, then the better I am at moving away from that limitation. So really what Saturn can ultimately do for us is to grant us structure, to grant us discipline, system, rhythm. If you think about it, when you're so disciplined about something, so rhythmic about it, so diligent, so patient, fear becomes just a part of the experience that will be there with you, but it does not rule the experience anymore. If you commit strongly to your discipline, whether it's a physical discipline, a mental discipline, a spiritual discipline, any kind of discipline, and you really become fierce about it and you really become committed about it, you're going to do it, even if you're afraid. Think about any person that has had to become disciplined to achieve anything in their lives. Do you not think that they have felt fear? Do you not think that they have also experienced internal limitations, subconscious patterns of their minds that were trying to limit them? Do you think that they were not also limited and restrained and challenged by the external world? And yet you see that they achieved something in their lives. So all these factors, they are not denied. This is not an imaginary, fluff woo-woo thing about manifestation, because that is the toxic positivity or the toxic spirituality. No, I don't mean to say that we can eliminate all of that. We don't need to eradicate it. We embrace it and we understand the role that it has in our lives, and that we carry all of that with us to that stage of achievement, to that state of liberation. Again, this is what Saturn wants for us. So again, it can seem a little bit of a contradiction, but it isn't when we look deeply into it. Saturn wants to show us how we can develop that discipline, that structure. Saturn wants to, I almost said it in Sanskrit, Saturn wants to show us these limitations to remind us that we are unlimited. How come? Because you, whoever you may be watching this video at any given point in time, you come from an internal source. You come from a great spirit, from the divine, from the ultimate, from God, whatever words you may have for it. Meaning that you are that. You are not part of consciousness. You are not part of the divine. You are not separated. You are that. You may not know it. You may not realize it. You may not be able to make it a real realization, let's say. But you are that. You are that immortal being. You have more than a soul. You have the self, that internal self that you are. And that internal self is boundless. It is limitless. It is eternal. That is your true nature. That is who you truly are. But in this individual state that we are in, which we call ego, this identity, the ego that I, Mars, need to be able to record this video, the ego that you need to be watching this video, that individual experience is a limited form of that unlimited self that you are. So once again, Saturn, what is doing is showing us all the limitations that are there for us to unravel, for us to deal with and tap into and be in touch with that limitless self, to be in awareness, and not just mental awareness, experiential awareness, real awareness, which is why it doesn't help if you just think about it and say, yes, I am unlimited. Okay, how far is that taking you? We live in a three-dimensional world. We live in a world of technology, smartphones, things, tangible things. So we need to see a result there. I need a scaffolding. I need a surface so I can put the divine in, right? And put these images behind me in. I need a nice, soft sofa that I can sit while I talk. I need my script. I need my phone. I need all these things. So it needs to show up there. It cannot remain only in your mind. And that is also the measure. If you need to know whether you're making progress or not, then observe the results out there in your life. Observe the results out there in your experiences, in your relationships. And so it may seem, again, this apparent contradiction, that you are this limitless being and you have to go through this journey of obstacles and delays, and you apply for a document and the government tells you no, and you want to open your business and you just can't make the money, or then the customers aren't coming, or then you want to go out with this person and they said no and they moved to a different country, or then you want to move to a different country but your passport cannot be processed, or now you can't go into that country. So you have to go through all these experiences. And you may wonder why. Why do we have this apparent contradiction? Why do we have to go from, if I am an unlimited being, into all these experiences of limitation? But once again, we need to remember that this journey of life, this spiritual voyage that we are in, really think about it. What is the spiritual path? What is that enlightenment? It is nothing more than becoming conscious, becoming more aware. It is like a spectrum, becoming more conscious. It also means making the unconscious or the unseen or the subconscious conscious. Conscious. So if you are not aware of the bondage, how will you know that it is not there? How will you know that it is not something that you've picked up? And I want to give 3 different statements today that will help us understand what is that will help us understand if we have picked up subconsciously or unconsciously these things, and how can we move past them. And so there's this little secret here that I like sharing in my talks, in my classes, and when I do readings, which is, we think a lot about the spiritual journey as a journey of detachment, and that is very misunderstood. The real journey of detachment comes through contact, not by separation. So we need to be in contact with the limitations, and while we experience a limitation, connect, be one, be in union with that core, that limitless, unbound, eternal core, your true self, while you experience the experience or event of limitation. And when you are able to do this, you realize, you understand this is an unshakable core. This is because it's eternal, because it's limitless. It cannot be affected by this. So the more aware I can be of that, and the more identified I can be with that while I'm going through the experience of limitation, then I can see that the experience of fear, the experience of bondage, delay, limitation just becomes something more to go through. And I am connected to that core and I become unaffected. And then it just becomes an event, just becomes a transaction for you to do, for you to witness, for you to go through. and it becomes so much smoother, so much easier to go through it. I like to give an example when I talk about detachment here. You may have heard me say this in another video or another talk in the past, but you need to open your mind to understand again how this detachment comes from contact, comes from that deep, intimate immersion into the world and the experiences of the world. So bear with me here because I know on paper it doesn't sound great, but the example is that if you meet a person who has lived on the streets all their lives, they are unfortunately they are homeless and they have been homeless throughout their entire lives, and this person tells you that they have overcome the necessity of a home, that is not true detachment. True detachment comes from living in a home and experience all the responsibilities and all the experiences that involves owning a home or renting a place, whatever it may be, and then deciding to disconnect from this and remaining in that unshakable core, whether you have it or don't have it. It is an extreme uh, or intense example, but it is that, right? It is not about avoiding, it is about contact. And then understanding that if I can connect myself to that deeper core, then I can go through the experience. You must come into contact first, and then you become free. So let's give 3 ways in which we can make the best out of the qualities of Saturn and use it to understand limitations better, to rise past the limitations, and hopefully also understand our psychic field, our mind a little bit better, and carry on with our lives with hopefully a little bit more harmony. One such way I've mentioned before is to be conscious and observe the limitations that you have. Observe keenly, monitor your own mind and your own experience throughout the day, and notice where are the limitations, where are the fears, and where are the rules. And you can even journal about it and write, okay, this day I experienced fear. Fear of what and when? When did this fear start? How conscious am I of when did I pick up that fear? And what does it say about me? This limitation that I am experiencing, where does it come from? What is it actually doing? What do I fear will happen if this limitation is not overcome? And think also about the rules. Again, rules, for example, that you may be living your life through, such as Mexicans can't do this. Rich people are evil and power corrupts. These are rules that you could be living your life by. You can change Mexican for whatever you want. You can change rich people for another country, another culture of people that you feel that they are not correct, not positive. But you understand that these are not truthful statements. There are many Mexicans that are able to do anything that they want. There are many people who are very wealthy and they are the real light bringers of the world. And while it is true that through weakness, many people can be corrupted by power, it is also true that we are in a journey of power. Even the journey of spirituality is the journey of power. And not everyone who achieves power is corrupted. So it is not a rule based on truth, no matter how common it may be. We should not give into the fear. We should not give into this rule, this limitation of saying, well, so and so is like this, and therefore I will not be able to. You will not notice, but you are programming yourself. You are making yourself less able to achieve possibilities, connection with other people, wealth, prosperity, health, happiness by accepting these rules in your life. Another way to think about this one in particular is think about it. Until you are very wealthy, you have no direct experience that being wealthy means that you will be evil. Until you achieve the incredible things that you can achieve in your life, you have no right of saying people like you cannot achieve it because you're a woman, because you're this race, because you're this culture, whatever it may be, because you're that age, this age, I don't care. And until you achieve power, you don't get to say whether or not power corrupts. You have no direct experience. You have no proof. Anything outside there in the world is not proof. It's just information. The real proof is what you can experience in yourself. And once again, that's an example of how you can connect to your unshakable core and operate thusly, operate from that. Number two is making Saturn your ally. And this is very simple. You start installing new rules for your life. So these can be things such as understanding what your fears are. And now the rule is that whenever you fear this or that fear, you will do an action to overcome that fear. And of course, one magnificent way to make Saturn our ally is to have a very disciplined life, whether it's a physical, exercise discipline, a diet discipline, study discipline, and of course, a spiritual discipline. If you say, okay, I will exercise 3 times per week, that is an amazing Saturnian, excellent thing to do. You are choosing to follow through something. And you will notice that when you do, you get a lot of fruits from it. And that means that you're strengthening Saturn in your chart. You're making that more powerful. You're creating that rhythm in your life. But when you break that promise, you're weakening Saturn. And if you want to know what kind of service, what kind of discipline, what kind of overcoming fear is best for you, you can consult in your chart. You can consult in your reading by looking at Saturn's placement, whether it is in a particular sign, in a particular house. This will tell you further where it is that you can make the best out of overcoming the limitations and by really harnessing the power of Saturn in your life. One thing about that is that I want to fully acknowledge that it may not be easy for you to build a discipline, but understand this also. If you think it is hard for me to have discipline because my direct experience is that in the past I tried blah, 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 and I failed. That is a rule. How conscious are you of that rule? Remember, being unable to set a discipline in your life is not an end-all statement. Really, it is a temporary thing. This is my direct experience as well. Because when you strengthen that muscle of showing up and committing, showing up to the yoga mat, to the prayer mat, to the practice, to the gym, whatever it is, you develop a muscle, as it were, and it becomes so much easier. For me, I haven't always been into this path. I have been for quite a few years now, but it is a journey. So when I was younger, I would also drink, I would smoke tobacco, I would go out partying, I would curse a lot, I would do all these things that were throwing my life into disarray. And then I started applying these things more and more in my life, and it just becomes so much easier. So never think that because you haven't been able to experience it in the past, that is how it's supposed to be. You are entirely, completely able to build that muscle. Not being able to have discipline is a temporary condition. It is not the truth. You're completely able to, you just need to work hard on it. And unfortunately, there is no shortcut. You have to work on it. There is no easy way. You have to go the hard way. But once you do, the rewards will come. The third tip that I want to give about making Saturn our ally is understanding that life isn't perfect. And sometimes we want to keep a promise and we fail. Life isn't perfect. It rains in your parade. It rains on your way to go to the gym. There's a flood, there's an accident, there's an incident. There's so many things that can affect. But this is not to dissuade you. This is not the universe telling you, hey, maybe you shouldn't go to the gym today and go and have a cake instead. It doesn't work that way. That is a trick, right? So don't fall into that comfort. Think about it. If you have an appointment with a friend and you stood them up, you can't assume that things will be the same, right? There is something that you need to do. There need to be repairs. There need to be amends. If you never acknowledge that you stood them up, how do you think they would feel? How would you feel if someone does that to you? So there are consequences to the actions that we take in life. So what can we do? What should we do? Think about it. When you stood up a friend, you need to explain to them what happened. You forgot or something happened on your way there. You explain the situation. You apologize where needed. That is how you make amends. So you see, there's still something that needs to come out of you to balance the scales, to keep things in harmony. And maybe next time you go out with your friends, you pick up the bill, right? To make things just smooth out, right? That is how you do it. You want to make them happy. You appreciate them. Think about Saturn the exact same way. Think about any planet like a person. Think about it. These are people. These planets, they're qualities, but think about them like entities. Think about them like people that if you make them happy, they will give you treasures. They will be happy with you. You will be happy with them. You make promises to them. And what happens when you have these positive, good relationships? Well, they build each other up. So that is the whole idea. That is the whole purpose. So ask yourself, what are the promises that you have broken? What ways do you have now in your life to show up and be disciplined, to be diligent, to be honorable, to be in service of things? Saturn also rules service. In what ways have you allowed fear to have a hold in your life? So, once again, understand these things. And so, if you say, okay, I will meditate every day for 30 days, that's amazing. That sounds very good. But being realistic in today's world, I can understand when my students and when people come and say, well, I couldn't do it. I had to miss a day. And I mean, I have no dog in the fight, right? I understand life happens. But when this happens, if you promised and you wrote it down somewhere, I will meditate every day for 30 days, and you miss one day, you cannot repay by only meditating maybe twice the next day, or you meditate at a later time. That's okay. But remember, you're not trying to keep things flat. You're trying to build them up. So you have to show that you have skin in the game. How can you do this? Think about it. You go and you break out of your usual pattern. You break out of the shell by doing an activity that is outside of your usual pattern, your usual rhythm of behaving. So if you say you'll meditate every day, 30 days, and you miss one day, don't try to create an action in the world to flatten things out. For example, let's say that you write down a consequence, and this is something that I do recommend. You commit to a discipline and you say, every time I fail on my meditation, I'll do 50 push-ups, or I'll do this, or I'll go and make a donation. The more skin in the game you have, you show that by really committing to a consequence. You'll take someone to their favorite concert, even though it's a band that you hate, right? You do something that is really outside, really beyond, really uncomfortable, so you can break that limitation, so you can break that boundary. That is the whole point. Don't make it something that is already in your sphere happening, because that's not really going to move things around a lot. That's not really going to show the universe. That's really not going to show Saturn that you care that much. And don't you want to show that you care? Don't you want to show the universe, hey, I really care about life, my power, my consciousness, my health, my prosperity. I really care. And let me show you how much I care, and in what ways do I care, and how much it is that I really care. So the true atonement requires that effort. Again, if you always go to the same coffee shop and you say, okay, I didn't meditate, so I'm going to go to the coffee shop that I always go, and I'm going to get my coffee, and I'm going to give double the tip that I usually give, that's not that great. I would say rather do something that is extraordinary. Again, do something physical that is very extraordinary. Do something as service to society that is very extraordinary. Something really out of your way. And if you follow through these 3 tips, these 3 advices of Saturn, you will notice that these limitations happen a lot less in your life. You'll notice that doors start opening. You notice that you become more patient, or it becomes clearer for you where it is that you need to become more patient and exercise that patience. It becomes clearer to you where fear is happening in your experience, and what do you need to do, where do you need to go to overcome it. So everyone, this is my recommendation to you today. I thought it was going to be a short video, but I always end up talking way more, even though I create a little script, and I always just get excited and want to share so much more. But this is a good stopping point for now in our journey about Saturn. So my recommendation to you is to follow this advice. And if this video is useful for you, if it is helpful for you, if you feel like it has given you some interesting information to reflect and to apply, well, of course you have to apply it in your life and see the results. But also I would be very grateful if you share, like, subscribe, and comment in this video, and share it around, because that would mean the world to me. And I'm happy to record more videos about this or any other thing that you may be interested about. So I want to thank you all so much for your time. Wishing you an amazing week ahead. Take care, and I'll see you next week.